I actually love these markets. I love these markets because the cream rises to the top. The good people rise to the top. You can't wing it anymore. You've got to actually know how and when to have conversations. You've got to know how to set up a strategy. You've actually got to know how to execute a strategy.
Welcome to Leading and Growing Your Real Estate Business. I'm James Short, and this show dives into the real stories behind the agents and the leaders shaping our industry. No polished highlight reels, just honest conversations about what's working, what's not, and how they're building businesses that actually grow. Each episode, I sit down with someone in the trenches, top performers, rising leaders, business owners who've cracked the code and others still figuring it out. We unpack the wins, the failures, the habits, and the lessons you can put to work straight away. Before we dive in, can I ask a favor? And please subscribe or follow on the platform you're listening or watching this. The more we grow, the bigger impact we can have together. And thank you. Let's get started. John Cunningham, welcome back to the show. Need no introduction. Oh, let's go. We're straight into it.
Fair enough, mate.
What I like to define you as the grandfather and godfather of real estate.
Love it.
I mean, what you've done for the industry, what you've done for your area over the northern beaches of New South Wales, it's actually been profound on so many different levels, from the mums and dads in their homes to the industry movers and shakers. You've been part of every part of that process, so many touch points. And today I'm really excited to get you back as a guest once again, because what we covered before was a huge hit. And I want to go a little bit deeper on three key areas. Is obviously leadership, culture, and mindset, three key passions that you have. And I want to find out, let's dive straight in relations to leadership. What are you noticing? Because in New South Wales, the market's changing, right? And so leaders need to adapt on how they actually lead. What are you noticing as some of the things that leaders need to be aware of in markets like what we're currently going through? And do they need to change their strategy at all?
Oh, look, leadership's a really interesting dynamic because I think it's misunderstood by most people, where until you get to a place where leadership is actually not about you, it's about everyone else. You're never going to get the best out of people. And I think in markets like this where you go, oh, it's challenging, it's whatever it may be, I actually love these markets. I love these markets because the cream rises to the top. The good people rise to the top. You can't wing it anymore. You've got to actually know how and when to have conversations. You've got to know how to set up a strategy. You've actually got to know how to execute a strategy. So leaders at the moment need to be really getting down to some simple fundamentals about people. This is very much a people training exercise to understand what's in their heads in uncertain times. And I'm not talking about agents, I'm talking about the clients and customers. Is a whole ball of confusion. You know, you can imagine what's going on in there. It would be so confusing. So confusion stalls. You know, you get to that place where until you can get you as the agent and the client into a place of clarity, so that decisions that need to be made can be made without question. That's what leadership to me is right now, is that preparation of people to understand not only the market they're working in, but the people they're working with and how confused are they. Deals will still be done. I've been through recessions. I've been through, the recession we had to have. We started the business in 1991. That was, the biggest recession we had since the Depression. We flourished. And why do we flourish? Because we had the right conversations with the right people at the right time, and put them into a place where it's like, I understand now. This, although I don't like what we're in, it makes sense, and I can move forward. Because all of these downturns we've had over the years, it fundamentally comes back to who needs to transact, who doesn't need to transact, and who should transact in effect. Because, as we all know, it's always relative. So that would be probably my big one right now.
I love that piece because there is a lot of confusion, understanding the confusion that the clients, customers are going through, but then helping the agents to get them to see the clarity and work through that confusion to clarity piece. Because I think when people have clarity, then they can actually make a decision and they know where they're going. But without that clarity, and as a leader, that's really understanding the emotions, that whole emotional intelligence. That's really understanding what's going on in the client's heads. So as an agent or as a leader, you can help the agent to bridge that gap. So I really love that piece from confusion to
It's a
clarity.
navigation piece. It's like saying, we are trusted professional guides, or we should be trusted professional guides.
Yep.
But we're still mostly, as an industry, transactional based, not understanding where the transaction's the end of that segment of the journey, right? So if you're guiding people along this pathway to this outcome, and they've got to navigate all the bits and pieces. When you get, to me, like the ultimate goal is to have a client and the agent in a state of calm, right?
Beautiful.
When you get into a state of calm, a calm only comes from clarity, and clarity has a whole lot of truckload of stuff before it, including conviction, confidence, and energy, and disciplines, and all those things that get you into a place where you can actually have confidence. You can't execute your role fully until you get a client understanding, clarity, and calm in the decision they need to make, and that way decisions become much easier to have.
Fantastic. So we got confusion, clarity, calmness. Ooh, love it. And so with those pieces, then, how does that then? Because the agents themselves in the office will have different levels of confusion, different levels of clarity, different levels of calmness within themselves. How does that have an impact on culture within the offices? And what could, I guess, leaders do around that to ultimately have calmness within culture?
Yeah, it's a really good point, James, because I think it's one of the big missing pieces to understand that, because it's this grit and grind concept. That we're in transactional mode, so it's grit and grind. You've probably noticed as much as I have in the last couple of years, that language is changing. It doesn't fit a performance culture. It thought that's what everyone thought a performance culture was, grit and grind, and just kind of grind it out. You're just like, I challenged that a long time ago when I don't want a life of grit and grind. I want a life where I'm in flow state. I want a life where I can make people calm, and I'm calm, and therefore we actually have an environment where you're actually happy to work in it. So if you create that from a cultural perspective, you've got a whole different environment. You have an environment of collaboration, cooperation, built around a calmness and a respect for each other. And the interesting thing is that when you go into tougher markets and things are more complex, there's another one of my favorite words, that complexity piece is complexity and confusion. What a cocktail, So you've got to move out of that to go, okay, we're all in this together to create a really good team culture. How do we all enhance each other? It's like going to a meeting with 4 people to solve a problem. You get incredible solutions out of a meeting with 4 people compared to 1, right? It's just different perspectives get put into play. So you can't do that if you're working in silos, and the industry is still really driven by silo-based, and it's been really forced to the extent through the contractor arrangements, which is I might work in this environment, but I'm my own silo, and I'm not going to cooperate. I'm not going to do anything. There's no collaboration. So we've got a problem. And to look after our clients, we're just not doing that. We need to have the force of we've got 20 salespeople. We need 20 salespeople working for a common outcome. And so when you get to that place, it starts with leadership. Leadership then can drive a culture. It can't necessarily create a culture. It can create the environment for a culture to flourish. And we call our culture the Cunninghams Way. And it's not only how we work, it's why we work, what we do, how we do it. It's about who does it, when it needs to be done. All those things are part of that environment. When we've articulated that in a document, the Cunninghams Way, it covers everything that we do. Because until you understand that's the way we work, this is how we're going to get the best out of our people. This is how everyone's going to thrive and flourish. And as a result of that, our clients thrive and flourish. It's pretty simple. It just gets confused and complex. And so
true. We're trying to overcomplicate things, right?
Yeah.
It's so true. The Cunningham's Way, I love that piece because it sets things up front. It sets those expectations, those standards, how we do things, why we do things. You talk about, but what I want to come back to is my heart started to sing when you said a particular word called flow. Now, getting into that flow state is a beautiful state to be in. Firstly, what's your understanding of flow state, and how does one get into that flow state? But also, how do we get back into it if we get out of flow state?
Really, really good. That's such a critical thing. And it's a really interesting one, because that flow state is a place where, you're probably familiar with Maslow's theory of hierarchy, and where you get into that strive to thrive mode, and what happens, to the ultimate self-transcendent space. But let's not get there yet. Let's sit around that strive to thrive place. The flow internally in yourself, to me, starts on, it's all about a daily basis. And I call it, if you want to stay in flow, start the day the right way. And the way that I learnt, it would be probably 20 odd years ago or more. I created this thing based on a lot of reading I was doing about what I call the 3 intentions. And the 3 intentions is the way that you start your day. And you have to do it looking in a mirror. In my view, you can't do it any other way, because the mirror, you can't lie to yourself in a mirror. And that's just three simple things. Who am I being today, right? What am I going to, how am I going to actually behave, which is how am I going to be seen? So there's who am I being? How am I being seen? And the third one is, what am I going to achieve? So they're the intents that you take into the day so that you start the day well. That way you remain in a state of flow. And that flow is also the in my view, the work you've done the night before or the end of the previous day, which is analysing your day and then creating the next day. That's flow. That's that discipline of flow. And it is incredibly simple. But like any discipline and habit, you've got to go to do that. And so one of the I think it was, I had a welcome session for I think 5 new people in our team on Friday. And so what were my intentions that morning was, okay, I've got to be switched on, I've got to be interesting, and I've got to be interested, right? They were my 3 intentions that were in the first bit. Okay, who am I being? That was who am I being? And so that flowed through as I went through the day to go, okay, and it doesn't matter so much what those intentions are, as long as they're positive intentions. It's actually then following them through, because they will lead to so much more. As long as you set those intentions up front, you can then have a whole set of values. And we've got all these things where we see just ourselves as from a flow perspective of the team, is we are one team, one standard, one experience. That's how we see what we do. And we have culture keepers and standard keepers within the team who make sure that for us to operate, everyone needs to be on tune. They need to be switched on. They need to actually go into this space going, what's my major purpose here as an agent? I like to serve my client. If you don't start your day understanding that's what your role is, to serve your client, you get rewarded incredibly well. And when you do it very well, you get people referring you business, you get flow-on effects, you get opportunities keep coming. And this is a business that keeps feeding you. But people make it so hard. It's like, oh, it's tough now. Well, no, it's not. It's just another facet of the market. The market's in constant state of flux. So how do we keep in flow? We keep coming back to center. Keep coming back to center. What are the things that, who are we? We think that from our perspective, advice builds confidence, experience builds trust, results build reputation. All those things are cores that are what we call the center of who we are. And if you understand that as a human, you tend to be, if you go off track, you can come back on track. Let's go back to center. Let's go back to center. Go back to our core values and who we are. There's a 2-hour training session on that if you're interested, but yeah, let's not go there right now.
But that's a beautiful piece of coming back to that centerpiece of coming back internally. And I guess that leads to then when we move into mindset, it sounds good. And for me personally, it really aligns to who I am and my daily intentions. But sometimes for the listeners, that little negative voice might creep in and like, oh, I don't know, am I good enough? What's this all about? You've trained and you've coached and you've mentored so many people over the years. How do you help those agents with that, I guess, that maybe that negative mindset, negative internal voice to overcome that so they keep on coming back to that centerpiece? What would you recommend, or what are some of your strategies that you do there?
That's a really good segue, because we didn't plan all this, by the way, folks. This is how things roll. There's a sort of what I call an operating model for that to happen, and it comes from, I suppose, three places where you can keep coming back to center by understanding that the essence of what you do should sit in a model of operation, and it's both a psychological and a physical thing that you're doing. The first one is manner and method matter. You know, if you think about the manner in which you work, and it's a purposeful manner, it's how we show up. So you've got to make these decisions on how you're going to show up. And if you don't do that regularly, you're going to go off track. You're going to go away from center. So how do you pull yourself on? You go, okay, well, what are my, purposeful manner look like? Is it around communication? Is it around the way I care with people? Is it my professionalism? Is it my EQ? They're the things that sit in your manner as to how people see you. And so how people see you is everything. It's there's nothing more or less than how they see you. So then you have a method of operation, which is around the concept of the discovery you do in terms of understanding clients' needs, the strategies you put into play to operate, the communication you have, and the way you structure communication with people, understanding it's everything you hear is a bespoke concept. Then how you execute that to create a measured delivery. So when you get to places like that, you've got something to come back and benchmark to. You've got something to go and go, okay, how did I go with that? And so then it's like, okay, you want consistency in this, because consistency is another thing that people see, right? Your consistency and your conviction, everything will build your confidence, and that leads to high performance. So if you get to understand how these things actually follow the bouncing ball, you can always come back to center to go, okay, let me have a look at my matter and method. Let me see how am I going on that to understand. Then you can look underneath at the foundations. Your foundations are your standards, your systems, and your structure, to go, is there something there that's letting me down? If you don't have those things in place, you've got nothing to go back to. And I think most people are constantly winging this side of things to get to a place where they go, oh, what's wrong? I've got to get that signboard's not right, or that piece of marketing's not right. And it's just all absolute, got nothing to do with anything. It's you. It's coming back to your center. Well, first of all, understanding your center. If you haven't done any inner work, it's going to be a real struggle. And when you see some people who have moved, and I met this young guy at the conference earlier this year who I'd met a couple of years earlier, and I said to him after he was up on stage for 15 minutes just talking about his journey, and he came, I said, you've done some amazing inner work. He said, I didn't know what inner work was until I did it. And it wasn't called inner work, it was called something else. It was self-discovery, wherever it may be. But he did that work to get to this place where all of a sudden his whole career made sense and he could make sense of his life. And he understood how he could map it out. He was just going on next deal, performance. I'm making money, I can buy this investment property. He wasn't actually looking at how he can function as a human being after the first 5 years of full-on intensity. And that's when he did the inner work. And he said, oh, my God, the weight that's been lifted off my shoulders is insane.
Bless. So, that's beautiful. That is beautiful. And that matter and method, and then that foundation piece, I think that gives you that blueprint of where you're on track and where you're off track, the ability to measure yourself rather than measure numbers, measure appointments and blah, blah, blah. It's measure how are you, as you said, showing up as a person? How are you delivering on your values? How are you living and coming to that beingness, as you said before, it gives you that reference point. And then I think, as you said, without that reference point, you're just wandering. And then in the perception, we go, well, what do we think is important? Oh, new cars, new houses, new this, new that. Well, as you said, coming back to self, to having that guidance system, I think it's crucial, particularly when you've got multiple pressures coming from you, potentially, things changing out there when you're not knowing that they're changing or how to deal with change, coming back to that centerpiece is so fundamental. And then how often do you recommend reviewing that or going through that process of, is this method and matter and foundation still in alignment? How often would you review that, or would suggested people to review that process?
Look, that's a very personal thing. I mean, I look within my team, and there's some people that need it every month.
Sure.
There's some people need it every quarter. There's some people need it every 6 months or annually. It's very much those who understand whether they're, like Andrew Lutzy in my team, a very high performer and business partner, and whenever he's just off a bit, he says, and he catches up, he goes, I know, John, take the high road. And I say, yeah, well, it's pretty simple. It leads to the right place, and it's one of those things. But that recalibration piece is something that I think it requires that bespoke approach. It requires somebody else. People mostly can't do this on their own. They need a mentor. They need their buddy. They need someone to hold themselves accountable and see where they're going off track. And I have one of my guys who, I think he lost 7 listings in a row, and he put his hand up and went, I need help. And we analysed it. We went through it, and I've got this 6 questions that you have to answer on each of the losses to go, okay, what happened? And the answer is always the same. It doesn't matter what it is. It's the other guy's commission, or they did this, or you don't know what someone does in a lounge room, right? Not at all. All you know is what you did or didn't do, right? So tell me what you didn't do. That's it. It's that simple. And the 6 questions lead to all the things you didn't do, and it's always the same. So he looked at this. I knew the answer. I just wasn't prepared to own up to it. Now that led to a couple of training sessions with Rob and myself and him on just going, let's get right down to where you missed the mark. And we've got tools and prompts that will help him to do that. Particularly we have this system, we'll call the 3 elements, which is find, win, sell. Oh, how simple. They're the 3 things we do. Find them, win them, sell them. He found it was in the win section. It was in the 5 fundamentals in terms of what 5 fundamentals of what a client needs to understand about that. And he was missing that out. And he was also in the sell section on those fundamentals. He just wasn't discovering sufficiently to get there. Anyway, to cut a long story short, he won 20 in a row. Immediately after those sessions,
what a
20 in a row. Now, did he fall off again? Of course he did. That's the nature of what can happen. Getting back on, right back on the horse. But everyone's different, right? That training session we did with him should be something that is 101 for everyone every 3 months, right? It's just like, guys, if you're not doing this stuff, you are losing business. You are just missing out on the fundamentals of what you need to do in terms of understanding and delivering to clients. So those sort of things come down to really very much understanding your sales team, very much understand. It's the same in PM, it's no different, and being able to get into their heads, because the complexity and the confusion in their heads is what's stalling. And a confused mind stalls. And the classic case of where the energy goes, where the mind goes, the energy flows. So if your mind's going the wrong place, you're getting negative energy. You're getting into a really deep place. So getting people out of their heads onto breaking things down is essential, because that head work's critical.
Fantastic. So true. So true. So John, exciting times ahead for you. What's coming up for you? What's the next 6 months to 12 months look like for you and the business and everything else in between?
For me, it's an interesting time of my life in terms of why am I bothering to do this anymore? I love the people I work with. I love the business that we have and the partners. We've got 13 partners now, and more people coming through who want to join it, because we see ourselves as a really strong cooperative in terms of how we function, and very much a performance-based culture. But there's so many moving parts to a business. And I love the new people. We've got a crew of about 8 young. They're all under 27. in between, I think, 19 and 27. And that excites me in terms of how I can help them on that journey. And it excites other partners as well, because they just see that that's the future. The future is no longer just about them. It's this, we want to keep, sustainability is one of my favorite words in terms of, we want the longevity of the business to keep going and everyone to benefit from this. And we could be a lot bigger than we are, but, at the moment we've measured our growth to, it's just not about more. It's about quality of life, and I just wish people would stop to understand that. It's not about the watch or the car or the, I've got an Apple Watch, does everything I need it to do. I've got a nice car, don't need to, talk about that. I've got property, I've got all this. I don't need anything else to make me happy. But what makes me happy is developing people and seeing them flourish. So that's what I'm doing. I'm the business is run by the management team. The structure that I've created has enabled me to just do what I'm in my lane, and my lane keeps getting narrower. But I want it to be as super effective as possible with the time I put into it, because I love to travel. I've got 4 grandkids. That's, people who miss out on their kids' lives, and it just really annoys me. I feel sorry for people who just don't see that you don't have to work your ass off. You've just got to get more efficient and effective in what you do. You've got to learn things. You've got to build knowledge and leverage that. You don't have to grit and grind. I don't understand it, James. I just don't see that people are putting their priorities in the wrong places. I figure I've only got one life, and therefore I'm absolutely making the most of that one life. And I've been some ups and downs with health and various bits and pieces, and it makes you see it even more clearer. But yeah, stop and smell the roses, stop and communicate with your family, and be the most valuable thing your family can have.
So true and so important. John, really appreciate your time, energy, and expertise. Thank you so much for joining us once again on the show. And I love the different areas that we covered today, and some huge gold nuggets in that. So once again, thank you for joining us.
Cheers, mate. Thank you very much.